right, with Moosetache, we are going to talk about shades of words. And when I talk about shades of words, what I mean is sometimes when we use words, you've probably heard me say, oh, you can think of another word instead of that one. Let's try to find a different word to use instead of like. Okay, or I might ask you to find a different word instead of using hot all the time. I might ask you to find a different word instead of using big. Okay. So what we're going to talk about is these shades of words. So basically, some people might call them synonyms, which just means another word for the same word that you're looking for. Okay. So if we think about the word knotted from the story, if something is knotted, we might even say that it is tangled. All right. No, not like the movie. Okay. Tangled. The book also said that not only was his mustache knotted, it was really tangled and it was even mangled, and that would be even more messy. Okay. If something is mangled, it's really messed up. Okay. So let's start with good here. What could be another word that we might use for good that might be a little bit more emphasizing on what we're trying to say? Like, oh, that was a good show. But what if we really liked it? Our book talked about the word good, but it also said that the idea was stupendous. And that means it's really good. Okay? Stupendous. All right. So it's good, it's stupendous. We might even say that it's really good and say that it's superb. That's the word that our book used. Superb. All right. So something might be good, but if we want to make it a little bit more exciting and use a bigger word, we could say that it's stupendous, which means it's really good, or we could say it's superb, which is almost perfect. All right. If we say splendid, splendid could be another word that we could use instead of good, and we could use these same words with splendid. Okay. We could say with glad, oh, I'm glad that happened, or I feel glad. Okay, so you're kind of happy about it. But what if you're really happy? If you're really happy, you might even be a little bit giddy. It's kind of giggly, I think. Okay, so you're really excited about something. So you're giddy. You could be glad, you could be giddy, or you might even gush. Now, sometimes when we think of the word gush, we think of something moving, coming out, okay? But in this case, what's coming out is your excitement, okay? You gush your emotions. One more that the book talked about is how nice Moosetache looked. And we might say, instead of nice, we might say, oh, well, you look nice today. We could say, oh, you look handsome. So you look handsome. We might even go a little bit further and say, you look very dashing today. All right. So these are the shades of words that I'm talking about. Now, obviously, there's more than just these. These are just some examples from our story that we talked about. But there are other words that you could use that would show different shades. And you actually have your Moosetache editing page, and it looks like this. All right, so at the top, you again have your sentence with 2 mistakes. So make sure you circle those and then rewrite your sentence correctly down here. Make sure you correct those mistakes. And if there are commas, you put the commas in and use the right punctuation. Down here, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are your shades of words. So what they did is they gave you 3 words and you have to put them in order. They're not in the right order, okay? So if we were thinking in terms of heat, which is what number 2 is talking about, would we say hot, warm, or boiling first? If we're thinking about heat, when something starts to heat, what do we say that it starts to become first? Well, we would say that it's warm. We might even say that it was warm outside. Okay? As maybe the summer gets going, we might even move on and say that it's what outside? That it's hot outside, right? So you go from warm to hot, and if it's super hot, you might even say, oh, I'm boiling out here. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but some of you might say that. So in order to go from shades, you might say warm, hot to boiling. Okay, that kind of tells you, oh, it's not too bad outside. You know, it's warm. It's nice. Summertime, oh, it's hot. You know, you kind of get a little sweaty when you're running around outside. But if you think it's boiling, you think it's way too hot to be outside. Okay? So let's look at number 3. Number 3 is just the opposite. It's talking about cool and freezing and cold. All right? So if we look at these 3 words, which one's going to be first? Well, we might say that it's cool outside. All right? Yeah. When it's cool outside, it's not bad. It's kind of comfortable. Well, as winter starts coming in, the temperature starts getting cold. And eventually, it gets to be freezing. Right? So now your job is going to be to do the last 2 on your own. Remember, you're putting these in order of shade, so in order of importance. All right? So like with the warm, it starts off at a low temperature, gets a little bit warmer, and then gets really warm. With the cold down here, it starts out cool, it gets cold, and then it gets really cold. So here, someone's going to say, oh, you're smart. And then they might move on to a different one. Oh, you're very intelligent. They might even go a little farther and say, oh, that was brilliant. All right? And then the last one is talking about how big things are. So, you know, you might say it's a big elephant. But then you might say that it's a huge elephant. And then you might even say, oh my goodness, that elephant's gigantic. All right? So make sure you put those in the right order. So that's what you're going to be working on for today. All right? So remember shades. Shades are actually adjectives. All right? We can use these as, it's warm weather, it's boiling water, it's a hot tub. Okay, so they describe things. They could also be like this one, knotted hair, tangled hair, mangled mustache. All right. So they're usually describing, but they can be sort of like a verb. He knotted and tangled and mangled his mustache. So they could be doings, but it could be a doing that maybe not so bad, getting a little worse, really bad. Okay, so keep that in mind, that it's kind of starting out as a little bit and moving on to a lot. Hopefully that helps. If you have questions, make sure you have your grown-up let me know.